Alright, here we go for the last toolkit entry for Chapter 7. This toolkit entry is aptly titled Finding Midpoints. So first of all, what is a midpoint? It's a point that divides a line segment into two parts of equal length. So for instance, I've got a line segment over PQ. What a midpoint would be is this. Let's say I drew in a point right here and I called it R. What it would mean is this. If R is truly the midpoint, it means that PR equals QR. These two lengths, length 1, length 2, would be equal here. So that's what a midpoint is by definition. Now if we're talking about 2 points and we actually graph them on a Cartesian axis, to find the midpoint, what we'd want to do is we'd want to find the average of the x coordinates and the y coordinates of the endpoints. So I have a little example here for that. So if you could, just draw a little sketch here of this. We have an xy axis right here. Here's our x, here's our y. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be plotting these 2 points. We're going to find the midpoint of the line segment with endpoints of A and B. Now these coordinates are pretty high. One of them is 200, 400. The other one is 60, negative 200. So if we had graph paper and our scale was set to 1, we wouldn't bother graphing this. That would just be too crazy, too big of a graph. Now you could of course change your scale, but we're not going to do that here. We're just going to draw a sketch. So if I drew point A in, I would go right 200 and up 40. So I'm going to go right 200. Here's about 200 and here's about up 40. So this would be my point A. I could do the same thing for point B. I'd go right 60 and I'd go down 200. So here's about right 60, here's about down 200. So here's my point B. And then I would draw a line segment in between them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So here's my line segment. So what we want to do in essence here is we want to find the point right here in the middle that would subdivide this into 2 parts here. What would be the coordinates of this midpoint? So the secret is this. If we want to find the x and the y coordinates, all we have to do is find the average of the endpoints here for the x's and the y's. So if we want to find the coordinates of the x coordinate, we take the x coordinate here, 200, and the other one is 60, add them together and find their average, which means we just divide by 2. So we say 200 plus 60 is 260, and we divide by 2, we get 130. If we do the same thing here for the y coordinate, what we do is we take the 2 y's of the endpoint. So we have 40 is one y, and the other y is negative 200, and go ahead and find their average. So 40 plus a negative 200 is negative 160, and negative 160 divided by 2 is negative 80. So our answer for the midpoint would end up being 130, negative 80. So that would be our answer, and that would be the coordinate of this point right over here. That's what it would be. All right, and finally there's another way too of looking at this. What if we were given an endpoint, one endpoint, and then the midpoint? Could we find the other endpoint? So once again, if we were to just draw a little sketch of what this might look like here, I'm going to draw my x, my y axis here. So here's my y axis. Here's my x-axis. So I know one endpoint is at 5, 11. So I'm going to go over 5 up to about 11. So I'm going to call that my endpoint. I know my midpoint is right 16. So that's going to be over here somewhere. And it's going to be not up 11, but up 8. So it's going to be about here. So that's my midpoint. Which means my other endpoint, which is going to be my question mark, is going to be about right here. Because if I were to draw a line segment in between them, I'm trying to find out. I know that these 2 lengths are exactly the same. So there's a couple different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you what I view to be the easiest, and we'll just leave it at that. There's an algebraic way of doing it, which is similar to what we just did up here. The variables just go in different spots here. But I'm going to show you another way which I think is by far the easiest. So if I've got one endpoint right here, and I know it's 5, 11, and I know I have a midpoint here and my midpoint is 16, comma 8, I need to know my other endpoint. And that's what we don't know yet. And so here's how it works. If I just look at my x coordinates here, if I'm going from 5 to 16, what am I doing? Well, to get from 5 to 16, I'm having to go up 11. So all you have to do is take this x coordinate and continue the same theme. So if I jumped 11 to get from 5 to 16, I have to jump up another 11 to get to the next one. So that means, what is 16 plus 11? Well, 16 plus 11 is 27. So that's going to be half of my answer. Now I need the y coordinate. To get from 11 to 8, what are we doing? Well, to get from 11 to 8, we're going down 3. So let's go down 3 again. So what is 8 minus 3? Well, 8 minus 3 is 5. So what is my other endpoint? My other endpoint is 27, comma 5. That's the answer. And that would be the coordinate for right here, this endpoint here. And you'll notice it's farther to the right than 16, and it's lower than 8. And there she goes, right there. And like I said, there is a way to do this algebraically using this formula set up here, but frankly I find this to be much easier, and I'll save you the pain of having to do it the algebraic way, just using the common sense way instead.